stop the party, but we need to get some work done, and you can start the party back up afterwards. Thanks for joining us Thursday, June 14, 2018, for regular scheduled TDC BCB meeting. Good, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I can have the clerk do the roll call, please. Here. Here. Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Great, thank you. So could I have a motion approval of the May 10th, 2018 TDC minute?
So moved.
Have a motion? Is there a second? Any other discussion about the minutes? Any objection? No objection, motion carried. Excuse me, we'll move on to public to be heard. Any public comment this time? If you could please come to the podium and state your name, please.
Good morning, Jack Carver with the Florida RV Trade Association. Just letting council know that we had a very successful show season, ended in April at the sports complex, our final show of the season. We drew this year over 14,000 people, a lot of sales, a lot of goodwill, a lot of fun, and a lot of work. Also, informing council that this September, the annual RV Trade Association, their 38th annual meeting will be held at the Bonita Springs Hyatt, and we will draw RV dealers and RV industry members from throughout the nation to that event. I don't know how many heads and beds are going to be there, but there will be several hundred, and should be a lot to know. I told Tam about it, and hopefully we'll have some assistance and some representation from the VCB.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, Jennifer Jennings from the Greater Pine Island Chamber of Commerce. And I want to start off to the TDC. Thank you for supporting Mango Mania. It is that time again. I think I was just here yesterday about this. So it is July 14th and 15th this year at the German American Club. It will be from 10 to 5 p.m. We have cut the hours due to the rain, the heat, and everything else that goes along with that event, that's for sure. So I want to thank you. And this year, our Mango Queen, who dropped her crown this morning, it's in the repair shop, so we'll apologize for that one, is Kayla McGuire. So please welcome Kayla.
Good morning. Thank you all for your time today. My name is Kayla McGuire, and I'm a second-generation Florida native. I was born and raised on Pine Island and consider myself very blessed to have the ability to say so. Growing up on the island, my parents owned island-based businesses, and my husband and I are not far behind them. I myself am a local realtor for Blue Water Realty of Pine Island and administrative assistant for Captains for Clean Water. My husband is a commercial fisherman and charter captain, and we love our island, both land and sea. Everything from fresh seafood to the tastiest fruit on the West Coast, Pine Island will always be considered a special place. Regardless of the growth around it, the island continues to hold the step back in time feel. Everyone supports each other's businesses and takes pride in all the events in the community. Visitors travel from all over the country to catch our local fish, see the beautiful water, and taste our fresh fruit. Whether you're in South and St. James City or taking a peek at Boca Grande on the horizon in Boquilla, anyone can feel at home. From the hundreds of acres of green, lush palm trees and acres of untouched preserves to the water crops of oysters, clams, and shrimp, Pine Island has so much to offer. Mango Mania has been an event everyone looks forward to for nearly 25 years now, and I'm elated to represent our beautiful island community and all it has to offer as the Mango Queen of 2018. Please come enjoy yourselves, join in the activities, and celebrate the mango with us at Mango Mania on July 14th and 15th.
And thank you for the gift that you brought to the council today. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Michelle Wesley. I'm with Gulf Shore Opera. I've been with the company for about 3 years, and I'm the operations manager there, and marketing comes under that umbrella. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Gulf Shore Opera. We serve Collier, Lee, and Charlotte counties. We present the highest quality opera theater and classical vocal performances throughout the region, maximizing accessibility for diverse audiences for all ages. Lee County is integral to our plan, as it is the center of the Tri-County area, and our expansion plans, hopefully in the near future, will include full-scale productions at Barbara Blue Man. I just wanted to say thank you to the TDC for giving us a marketing grant this past fiscal year. We were glad we had the opportunity to partner with Gulf Shore Ballet, FGCU, Pace Center for the Girls, Sidney Byrne Davis Art Center, the Alliance Center for the Arts, and many other Lee County organizations. We hopefully have some future partnerships due to the Lee County Travel Rally, which was a great opportunity to network with other organizations in this TDC family. We promoted our Lee County events to Collier and Charlotte County residents and visitors outside of this region through ads, e-blasts, social media. We tried TV ad spots this year and printed material at various locations. We have documented that over 50% of our attendees are for Lee County events were from outside of this region and county, and we increased our website visits over 75% with the assistance of the VCB. I just wanted to say thank you once again for this marketing grant. It helped increase our reach in advertising and expanding our market. The staff at the VCB, with Leslie's help, were great assistants in helping me to develop a plan. I'm new to the marketing area and also confirming I had a decent plan, and then in promoting our events for our Lee County events through their website. The staff here was excellent and very helpful, and we look forward to hopefully working with the TDC this next year and expanding our project. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, we'll move on to municipalities be heard. Any cities here to address the board? No? Okay, we're going to close that. And I'm going to start a new business. I just wanted to make one more announcement. Everybody remember today is Renee's last meeting, and thank you for your years and years of dedicated service to the TDC, the VCB, and all the citizens of Lee County and the businesses. So thank you for everything you've done. You've been a great asset.
Thank you. Enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear more about that today throughout the meeting. I'm sure somebody will say something else nice about you, Renee. So thank you. Move on to the new business. Proposed budget report. Lucy?
Good morning. For the record, Lucy Maldonado, Fiscal Manager. In your packets, you had the fiscal year 18-19 proposed budget. So I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have and request your approval.
Any questions?
I'll move the item.
Okay, we have a motion to move on. Is there a second?
Second that.
Is there a second? Any other discussions or questions? Any objection? The motion carries. Thank you. Next, be the five-plex funding request. Jesse Lavender.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
I don't know who's got the PowerPoint. Okay. Up. Right there. Perfect.
Yep. All right.
I'm here before you today. Request a additional $3.3 million from the TDT stadium funds. This would increase an existing project over at the Player Development Complex, which is located at the end of Edison Avenue. Would increase it from $5.7 million to $9.074 million. I wanted to give you everybody, since it's been so long since we initially started this project, a brief timeline of things that have taken place. This isn't everything, but this is really the pertinent how we got to where we are now. In April 21st of 2015, the Board of County Commissioners agreed to proceed with the project at the Player Development Complex on the current parkland that we had. You can see that is the area in purple. Since that time, we hired a design firm back in November of 2015, and the city approached us about a unique opportunity to increase the parkland in this area. It's really a one-of-a-kind opportunity that we couldn't pass up, and I believe Roger spoke to you about that at a TDC meeting. I was here. I remember him talking to you guys about that agreement. Basically, what that agreement did was added an additional 82.26 acres to the park. So we canceled that design contract back in 2015 because we were negotiating on that. In April, as you're aware, the Lee County Sports Development folks released the results of the sports feasibility study that had been conducted. And the very first recommendation from the consultant was exactly what we're proposing to do at the park. In June of 2017, the Board of County Commissioners approved the agreement with the City of Fort Myers for the additional lands. In December 5th, we went back out for a new design contract, and the Board of County Commissioners approved that contract. And the most recent developments in this project was May 15th, per our agreement with the city, they contracted a consultant for the Phase 2 analysis of all the areas, both green and purple, on this map. Before you, I have a larger version of the concept plan that we currently have, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better. I just wanted to point out the defined lines for Phase 1, where we're requesting this additional $3.3 million. It's south, as you can see, Phase 1 south. It would be anything in this area. I'm not sure exactly how many fields we're going to get. There's numerous fields that the City of Fort Myers utilizes in this area, so the design firm is going to have to work around some obstacles. But it would also include putting lighting, sports lighting, on the existing 5 fields, which you see up there. What we're trying, our main goal here is for sports tourism. We're trying to provide tournament caliber fields for something that we haven't really created sports fields in the past that allow for the use of youth baseball, fast pitch softball, and adult slow pitch softball. So really each field that we build down here will benefit various tournament organizers, and it's not unique to one specific fast pitch sport or youth baseball, that we'll be able to adapt to different tournament organizers' needs. And the benefits of this, of course, is increased room night totals by adding new tournaments and expanding existing tournaments. As you know, we have a very good return on investment with our sports tournament organizers, and many of them are trying to expand their operations in our area, and this facility will allow for that. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions of the council?
Yes, the fields up in this other quadrant up here on the top, that's not included?
That's not included in Phase 1.
Okay.
Right now, the contract we have with the design firm is to design this section, Phase 1, 100%, and 60% up there is what the area you're referencing. So we don't know when we're going to have the money for that development of that phase, but it's not the initial Phase 1 development. Yes, sir.
Holly was next, and Renee.
Currently, there are how many fields that we're operating within Lee County that we use for the incoming teams?
Well, that depends. If you're talking about adult, like perfect game thing,
Let's say perfect
high
game,
school.
our biggest draws.
Right, we have well over 30, plus we use numerous other municipalities. We go up to Charlotte County, we go down to Collier County. It depends on the tournament, and if they're willing to drive to other counties. It's really more of a regional aspect for the larger tournaments.
And with this phase one potentially coming in, do you have, if this is approved today, is there any potential time frame as to when construction will start and how many fields we can have? The reason I'm asking,
Correct.
As a hotelier, I get a lot of feedback with the teams coming, whether they go to Collier or wherever they're going, the quality, the maintenance of the existing baseball fields that we have. So getting this under construction would be a great addition.
Let me just explain that, I know there's some other municipalities here, but I feel like nobody has the quality of fields that we do here in Lee County. I've been to Collier, and there's a push for artificial turf fields, so they're kind of, their current fields are not as in good of shape as ours are. But the agreement we had with the city had a timeline. It's kind of a rough timeline. It was supposed to be completed by the summer of 2019. That has been delayed, and we're anticipating sometime probably in 2020.
Okay, and you're aware Collier's looking at a major development.
Absolutely, as well as Cape Coral and
And those are, those three areas, they're pretty close. So if you've got major tournaments coming in, that travel distance isn't prohibitive, but this would almost be the central area. And I think it's a great project. I'm glad to see this.
Thank you.
Renee?
I'm just curious, we left the contract with the design firm, and I assume not a lot has been done yet. Where did they come up with the $3.3 million?
It was based on availability. You could spend $100 million here if you wanted to get into the intricacies of everything. But what we're asking for is a little bit more money. They came up with an estimate of $9 million, and that's why I'm before you today asking for this additional funding.
Just had a question. This is actually the first I've seen the design. So is that the new road? Is that going north to 82 on the east side of the complex?
Yes, Commissioner. That is a proposed roadway. We're not sure if that is ever going to be built, when it's going to be built, but it was a part of the agreement with the city on one of the exhibits drawings. That's exactly where I took the picture before that. If you could go back one more. This is from the agreement, the boundary lines and the Edison extension.
Does this proposal include the right-of-way for the road, or is that something separate?
No, the city is in charge, would be responsible for the right-of-way. So what the design firm is going to do is construct around it, allow for the right-of-way, but we're not getting involved in the right-of-way.
So it would be a city road or a county road after it would be a city road? A city road. And that would be basically outside the purple area going east? Mm-hmm. Where it looks like it's going to be a roundabout maybe?
Well, there's some future discussions that need to take place because the city has elected to route this road through our existing property, the purple here, and I don't believe that has been approved by the commission.
Okay, and then my other question, I know this from being historically involved with the city, this property is south of this north of the water treatment facility. I know years ago in the decades the city had used that area for, I guess, storage of material, and we're not going to get, has that probably been tested for any type of arsenic or sludge or anything before we get involved with something we have to stop?
Yes, sir. We are undergoing the exact same tests that are being done in the other Dunbar site in this Phase 2 environmental analysis that's taking place right now.
Because where the current facility is now on the south side of that road, there, that was the old staging area for Public Works before, which is north of the existing complex, and that was the area for storage of material. So I just want us to get started a project and it gets held up because something's found on the grounds there.
Well, as per the agreement that you and your other commissioners approved, the results of the Phase 2 analysis will determine which route we go. If remediation is necessary, we will pay up to $150,000.
Okay, thank you.
Is Phase
Colleen?
2 is that going to be the far right, top right? The extra 4 fields, is that what you're?
Yeah, essentially Phase 2 would be anything we are unable to complete in Phase 1, as well as the upper portion.
And this could be, how much more would it cost while we're doing this work to put those 4 fields in? Like, is one project versus 2? Or is that just not even?
If we were not to light those 4 fields up in the top, and again, this is all going to change due to the wells and once the design firm really gets into the nuts and bolts of this. Typically, a large field, which is what's proposed, large, small, you're looking at $500,000 a field. Smaller fields are less than that, obviously. So,
does it cost more to do it, to phase it, or to do it all at one time? Like, would it help is the cost difference enough to consider doing it all at one time? You know, when you go back to permitting, you go back to designing versus one time, get it all done. Like, what's the cost?
Absolutely, it costs more.
Right, okay.
Bill, you had a question?
I think the project's great, Jesse. My question, you mentioned ROI. Have you modeled out the ROI for this, the extra $3.3 million?
I have not. Jeff Milkey was working on it with sports development, but we have not specifically drawn up those figures yet. But the bottom line is we've turned a lot of events away. We do have those figures. When you just adding, to give you an example, just adding lights to the existing 5 fields. I know daylight savings time is supposed to be year-round now, but in the winter alone, that will add probably 20 more teams to just a tournament. So you're looking at each team having 15 people, do a multiplier of 2.5 for parents and family who are staying in our hotels. That all adds up.
Glenn, you had some comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Jesse, just that last point, I mean, based on historical data, we can provide all kinds of numbers. The question is, what additional capacity do we need, and do we think that those historical numbers will hold, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so maybe we can work that up and provide it to everybody.
Sure.
Great. And then, Mr. Chair, I did just want to mention the funding piece. Just so everyone is clear, we've got availability of funds in the stadium allocation now. These are monies that, if we didn't spend them here, will be transferred to the Common Reserve. But, you have the ability to recommend this project to the BOCC before that happens, if you so choose. County CFO Pete Winton's here if anybody needs more details on that, but that's just the overview.
So for clarification, this funding is already set aside by statute for the TDC for sports tourism, and this is classified for that.
Yes, sir. It's within our sports facilities allocation now.
Okay, great.
Move the item, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion, questions? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you. Good job, Jesse. Thank you. Next item would be Fort Myers Beach tram funding requests. Paul from Lee Tram.
Mr. Chair, may I lead this one in real quick?
Yes.
So we had mentioned at our last meeting that this would be coming before you. I want to acknowledge that it is an out-of-cycle beach and shoreline request, which typically we don't love. But 2 things. One, again, there is leftover allocation that hasn't been designated yet. And 2, the reason we didn't come forward with this before is, of course, the pilot project was in full swing when the cycle was open. And now that it's closed, we have all of the data. We can show you how successful the project was, et cetera. So just wanted to preface Paul's remarks with that little bit of information.
Thank you. And Tim?
And just to add to that, I had staff pull up, this is your list of projects you funded out of the Beach and Shoreline Program. It's not in your packet, it's just up on the screen. And you see the bottom line there. You funded, you had $9.67 million, and you funded, wait a minute, No, I take that back. That's not the amount available. You had over $10 million available, 10.6, I think it's at the top. But you funded $9 million worth of projects, leaving 1.6 million available. So when we consider these next two requests, you may want to keep that number in mind. You have that $1.6 million. So my apology.
Great. Okay, Paul, I think you can start now.
Okay.
Here we go.
Good morning, committee members. We're here this morning to ask for additional subsidy for the tram on Fort Myers Beach that we started as a pilot last year. We're looking for a subsidy of $430,000. I'll give you a brief overview, a short slideshow here of the tram project and what we've done and what we want to continue to do on Fort Myers Beach for the tram. Just talk a little bit overview about what we've done. We're proposing the same thing as we did last year with an additional tram unit, which we'll talk about in the subsequent slides. And telling you where the tram's going, it goes between Bowditch and Mantanzas Preserve. We cover Times Square area, Lynn Hall Park, then we turn around at Mantanzas Preserve. The tram route does connect with the park and ride trolley and the beach trolley both. Everything connects up at Times Square. There are 28 stops along the beach tram route. 75% or 21 of those stops provide the direct access to the direct access beach points along Estero Boulevard. Due to the open nature and the complexity of putting a fare on the tram, we opted not to. It proved to be a very good option, as the ridership will show you. It's just an overview of the ridership between fiscal year 17 and fiscal year 18. As you can see, by adding the tram, the ridership increased dramatically between both years. We are running the beach trolley along the same as the tram route as well. We did start that this year, and we'll do the same thing next year. That way, if it rains out or something like that, folks can still ride the trolley, and they're not stuck in the open cars of the tram. And I do want to mention there's almost a 30% increase there in the ridership. This is a picture of the tram without the third car. As you can see here, there is a safety bar on the, what we call the roadside. We don't board on the roadside, we only board on the curbside. That was something that we had to overcome pretty quickly. And we did, we added that rail so nobody can get out. We also we're going to add some different safety features this year on the tram that will help promote proactive safety culture on the tram. We do have a tram attendant as well. That helps us with that. This is just a high-level overview of our entire system map, and we're showing you the tram and trolley and park and ride routes here. The park and ride route is in red, the tram route is in this gold, and then the beach trolley is in the blue between Lover's Key and Bowditch. That's what we'll be doing next year. This is like a zoomed-in picture. These are the beach access points here that take you out to the water here. And the tram services those as well as the beach trolley does as well. We go into Times Square area and then go up to Mantanzas Preserve up here. Also important to note that this is a key, we think this is Old St. Carlos is a key area for the tram. Very successful, people enjoy going over there to the restaurants and the shops, and it's, the tram kind of lends itself to that area. Just some simple facts here of what we're running, a number of recommended vehicles, 2 trams and 3 trolleys. It's about the same as we were doing combined with our equipment on Fort Myers Beach. We're not increasing really anything. It's the same level of service. We're just swapping the vehicle types out. The round trip miles and the frequency of 30 minutes. Of course, that's, depends on traffic. We all know you could be stuck from, down at the RV resort. It could take you longer than that to get to Times Square if you're going that way towards Bowditch. And the fare on the trolley is 75 cents, and the fare on the tram. There's no fare on the tram. Just general considerations we already talked about. Service in the Old St. Carlos area, going to Bowditch. We definitely, substantiated that we needed 2 employees on that tram, 1 driver and 1 person running safety for young kids and people with, that might be a little slower moving, so we help them out. And we're also doing, this year we intend to do more of public announcements, so to speak. You know, we have PA system on the tram. We're going to have an AVL system on the tram. We're actually working on putting it on right now. And the tram attendant will help by calling out different areas and points of interest and just helping people make decisions. Not so much to say like, hey, head over to the Beach Whale because the fish and chips are great there, but just kind of pointing out the restaurants and saying, you know, don't forget this place is over here on the right. There's a place over here on the left if you want tacos or whatever. So we are doing that, and we intend to keep doing that. To train the drivers to be more like ambassadors and attendants. I think that's important for the tourist community. I know it helps me when I go up to Boston and I ride the trolley up there, so I think it's a good thing. The beach trolley will continue to run from Bowditch. We already talked about that. It's the same path. We're not changing anything. You're going to have duplication of service, actually. So we think it enhances the visitor experience. We carry quite a bit of people, over 1,600 people per day. Between February and May, 118,000 people. You know, that's on and off that tram. And this is the first year we did it. So it was pretty successful. It is a fun and it is very fun. I rode it. I was the first one to ride it or drive it, I think. But it's pretty cool. If you haven't rode it, it's pretty fun. Just a breakdown of the budget and the cost. You know, like I said, we were asking for the $359,000, which is 75% of the beach access points of that part of the budget for the tram. Total tram cost here at the bottom, $573,000. And we derive that by finding 75% of the total cost as defined as 75% of the stops that have direct beach access. So we kind of correlated it back to that. Those are just the numbers. These are the capital cost numbers here to purchase an additional tram, which we are in the process of doing right now. We'll be going up to California probably in the next couple of weeks to do an inspection on that unit and then have that unit shipped. And that is all I got, unless you have any questions.
Great. Any questions? Colleen?
How long does this fund, like what's this funding year? Is it this fiscal year or is it through when?
So the funding for the tram...
Buying the tram.
Two things, right? We're going to buy the tram that you need to rotate in order to keep them fully operational at all times.
That's correct.
And it would fund the operating for fiscal year 18-19.
Through September of 20...
Well,
it's seasonal.
It's seasonal. So
what we're asking for is the funding for the year coming up, right? The tourist season coming up, the funding for that, which we start in January, and then we run through... I think we're proposing May 1st to run the tram and trolley service through May 1st. That would be fiscal year 19.
Service of the seasonal tram, I presumed it meant, I didn't realize it meant, okay. So we're doing this to pay for next season?
For next season, that's correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Renee?
I assume Andre is happy with this, right?
When it came before, I said it was eligible for funding? No.
I think anytime you can get people out of their vehicles and onto something like this, it's good. Mike, I'm curious, out of the 119,000 riders, what's your estimate of tourists versus residents?
Well, if I had to take a wild guess on that, well, we can comment pretty accurately on that because we know that after the tourist season ended and then we ran the tram out to May 30th, the ridership dropped off dramatically. So we made the decision to extend the tram out to May 30th this year, and we didn't really see the numbers. So we can kind of guess that we had some pretty substantial numbers during the time that the tourists were here. So if I had to take a guess in my experience on the beach, which is pretty good, I would say that it was a lot of tourists on there. And I think there was some regulars too that ride, but they're used to the trolley system as well, so they ride the trolley pretty much.
Thank you.
Renee, I would estimate, because we would operate 2 hotels there, 75% are hotel tourists. Yeah.
That's good.
Fran, you had
I just have 2 questions.
One more.
Has there been any talk of taking it further than the Matanzas Pass where you turn it? Has there been any talk of taking it down further?
I believe there has been some discussion on that, and WeTrain will, explore those options as the board directors and county administration directs us.
And my second question is where you drop off when you turn to go past the library there, and you turn to go there, is there any thought of putting any benches or anything? Because, I mean, I've watched this day in and day out, and it's wonderful. I mean, it really does take a lot of tourists. I would say 90% are tourists, but I see a lot of people, I think a couple of the shops drug out chairs for them and different things. We really need something there for the folks that are waiting.
As you can see along the beach, the benches that we already built, we put out there, they're pretty nice. So we intend to kind of keep working with the town on coming up with options and obviously property in places where we can have a little bit more of an amenity at the ends, what we call the end of the line of the terminus. So if people are waiting at the end of the line, they have somewhere better to sit and out of the weather. So we're definitely looking at that, collaborating with the town and with the county, town, and Leetran together. We definitely are looking at that.
It's a great idea, though. Thank you. So you've seen positive results down at the beach with it?
I'm sorry?
You've seen positive results?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Oh,
Thank you. Renee, you got a question?
I'll move the item.
I will second that.
The motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next item will be revised 1819 request for beach maintenance fund, the Damon grant. From the Captiva Erosion Prevention District.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and council members. Damon Grant, the administrator for the Captiva Erosion Prevention District. I'm here before you this morning to ask for additional funding. The additional funds will be for enhanced maintenance at Hagerett Park and the beaches of Captiva Island. We originally, Captiva Erosion Prevention District, submitted to you a request for $27,900 just a few months ago prior to my arrival. We have since been speaking with the Lee County Parks and Rec staff and our Board of Commissioners would respectfully request an increase of $157,200 for the fiscal year 2018-2019 funding request. That would bring our total from the originally requested amount of $27,900 up to, on the back page of your documents, $185,100 for that year. We would also increase the CEPD match from $17,000 up to $57,228. These additional funds will be used to enhance the maintenance needs of Hagerett Beach Park. It's a parking lot, so we've up to this point have taken a pretty minimalistic approach for maintenance. We have the standard porta potties for restrooms. There's no running water. What we'd like to do is to buy new restrooms, provide running water, and some other items that would help us better provide maintenance up and down Captiva Island.
Any questions, comments? Any motions?
Move the item.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Any objections? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, the report from the Executive Director, Tamara Pikett. You're up.
All right. I'm up. Unfortunately, for the first time in a long time, I'm going to tell you that the bed tax collection is down, but I don't think anybody is surprised with Easter being 15 days earlier this year than last year, 9.2% decrease. I will remind you, last April we were up 15%, so this number represents an increase over 2016, but not an increase over 2017. For the year to date, bed tax collection is up 8.7% and at over $30 million. The STAR report certainly reflects the earlier Easter occupancy down 1.6%, ADR down 3.9% for a RevPAR decline of 5.5%. Airport passenger count down 9% as well. consistent for sure, but their increase year-to-date is 5.23%. So you see they're still having a strong year as well. I do have a couple of things I want to share with you. One, we have a couple of new staff people, one who could join us today and one who is actually attending her guest first training, so she's not here with us today, but I'm going to introduce both new names to you. Joan Barkowski is our new sales coordinator, and Brittany Bremer is our new visitor services coordinator. Joan's role will, of course, be to work with travel agents and potential visitors. She has 5 years of experience in the hospitality industry, including roles as the front office manager, sales and catering coordinator at hotels in Lee County. Just prior to joining us, she was in the sales division at Gartner. She is a 2014 graduate of FGCU with a bachelor's degree in resort and hospitality management. She was born and raised in Germany, speaks German, English, and some Spanish. So we're super happy to have Joan join us. And then Brittany is based at the airport, of course, with Judy and her team as our visitor services, volunteer services coordinator. And she is a 2016 graduate of Missouri Western State University in St. Joseph, Missouri, her hometown. She has a bachelor's degree in wildlife conservation and management. She's a certified master naturalist and is currently pursuing her master's degree in environmental studies at FGCU. She most recently was the park ranger at Delaware Wiggins Pass State Park. So we're excited to have both of those. She also coordinated the volunteers there at Delaware Wiggins. So we think we have two great people. And I think Joan is here, right? Joan, will you stand up so they can at least see your face? And we'll be sure to get Brittany here next month. Sorry she couldn't join us this month. I also want to remind you about National Seashell Day. So I know you've heard about it because it's been everywhere, and that's good PR on behalf of the VCB staff. As of today, we have 1,269 people registered to be part of the, hopefully, world's largest human shell. We're going to cut off registration at 1,500. We certainly would love to make it bigger, but getting everybody there and feeding them and clothing them, because they will be given a T-shirt, which will, of course, commemorate the event, but it also is colored to make the shell, and a hat. So we're cutting things off at 1,500, and we can't wait for everybody to join us on June 21st at the Outrigger. Parking at Lovers Key State Park with a trolley bringing you to the Outrigger, or at the Park and Ride. Either location they can park and come. No parking at the Outrigger, to be clear, so anybody who participates. And the other thing we're doing is trying to reduce the number of these, so we're asking everybody to bring a reusable water bottle. We'll have water stations rather than handing out plastic bottles of water. So we've got a good plan in place. We're really excited, and we hope we're going to break that Guinness Book record for sure.
What's the total time, do you think? I know
we're starting the trolleys at 6:30 because you can't get everybody there at exactly the same moment. I hope we're done by 10:30, 10 or 10:30. Fingers crossed.
What's the number you need to break the record?
856. So I think we're in good shape. The only worry is, does everybody who sign up show up? As you can guess, but we should be able to do it. And if we don't, we're still going to have a whole lot of fun. So.
You're getting great PR.
Yeah, we have. Staff has done an incredible job of getting that word out there.
What place holds the record now?
Shell Oil Company made their logo with a group of employees. Remind me where it was. Turkey, sorry. At their Turkey offices, they were having a group session and they made their logo. We just think that the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel should own the world's largest human shell.
And it's next Thursday?
It is next Thursday.
And that's what Fran was reminding me earlier, we have our Port Authority meeting that morning, so
Joint meeting that
we have
day.
a joint have a
I'm
conflict.
very sorry.
No, there's nothing.
National Seashell Day is the day.
Can you bring a picture or a poster of me and put it out there?
I think you should come. Maybe you could just be late.
Skip the
Get permission to be late.
I can't now because it's on the record.
I'm sorry.
I can't call off sick that day.
I apologize.
That's fine.
We're excited about
You made a great
it.
event,
So, and with that, I would like to now bring up Bob Dominy to give you the first quarter report on research.
Oh, good. We have turkeys in Maine, too. We use them for Thanksgiving. I want to start by thanking Tim for being forever gracious and talking about a couple little dips that occurred in April and leaving it to me to talk about a gangbuster winter season. I'll also mention in starting that I am from Portland, Maine. Davidson Peterson is on Commercial Street in downtown Portland on the waterfront. And so I like to bring a little local color from time to time. We talk about the seasons in Portland, too. You can hear an old-time Mainer leaning against his pickup and kind of screws up his face a little and leans in and looks very judgy at that point and says, if you can't stand the winters, you don't deserve the summers. And I think our seasons are basically flip-flopped, that your winter is gangbusters, it's pure gold. I know you already know that, and I want to tell you a little bit about the numbers behind it. So we'll move right to the highlights. This is the very fun column. If we look at Lee County lodging, we see visitation was up among paid accommodation guests, expenditures up 4.2%, expenditures in lodging in particular up even more, available room nights up, occupied room nights up even more, so you're adding to the inventory, you're filling it, and an average occupancy rate up almost 2%. The only interesting news is ADR and RevPAR were down just a little bit. I would call that almost flat. Let's dive in a little further and again look at paid accommodations. There's basically the tan bars there, gold bars. Let's call them gold bars. 2014 to 2018, the percent change, 1.5% in estimated visitation among winter season visitors staying in paid accommodations. Visitor expenditures. This is the fun part. Again, looking at the gold bars, those staying in paid accommodations, from 2014 to 2018, the percent change, 17.1% change, from basically $760 million in 2014 to $890 million in 2018 from those visitors staying in paid accommodations. Visitor origin, here's a story that I know has been of a little bit of concern here. It's your sense is this is happening and your sense is borne out in the numbers. This is basically a U.S. vacation market, though historically international has played a very important part. We can see this has hovered right in the upper teens, crossed 20% in 2016, and I guess the concern is has dropped down to 10% in 2018. In particular, we've seen a big drop in Canada. We've seen a drop in Germany, which I understand has, at least we conjecture, has something to do with the direct flights not taking place. I met yesterday with the gentleman who does all of our on-the-ground data collection here in Lee County, and he was telling me that some of those direct flights are being brought back, and he's starting to see more German travelers at the airport again. And I took a minute to ask Dave about this because these changes are so interesting. And, Dave basically says, yeah, we're out there and we're out in the same places. We're at the airport, we're at Miramar, and we're not doing anything different. And this is what the sampling is giving us. Paid accommodations, domestic origin. I finally thought through this slide completely. The primary feeder regional market is the Midwest, secondary being the Northeast, and then looking at specific feeder markets, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and New York in the Northeast. And Tam was giving me a hard time yesterday because Boston is so low, so I'm supposed to take back a pocket full of brochures and walk around and hand them out around Manchester, New Hampshire, I think. But the interesting thing is that this whole Midwest Northeast connection is the case because you have this place called the Edison Ford Estate. The big guys have known enough to come to Fort Lee for 100 years. and everybody still knows enough to come here in the winter season, and it's borne out in the numbers. Lodging industry summary, available and occupied room nights. Again, occupied room nights, we've had a 15% increase over the years 2014 to 2018. And available room nights, an 11% increase. So again, the sort of 4-year, 5-year story that's being told here is that we're adding to the inventory, but we're more than filling what we add. And so that's a happy story. Occupancy rate trends, all properties combined, 2.8%, 2014 to 2018, a big bump between 2017 and 2018, or it looks like a big bump right there. And then the interesting thing when we dive down, hotels, motels, and resorts explain most of that. You can see between 17 and 18, we went from 82 to 87%. There was actually a drop in condos and vacation homes, and about flat in RVs and campgrounds. I will quickly say that this is probably explained by the fact that we just did a big inventory update. And as part of the inventory update, we added a lot of properties in this area, and we're getting more accurate reporting, therefore, from those properties. I think we had the highest participation rate in interviewing lodging managers that we've ever had for this past winter season. And so I think that number probably is a real number, where that number probably had a little bit of imputed data in our modeling process. ADR trends, all property types combined, again, 2014 to 2018, up 4.1% for the winter season. And then digging down, what we see is the big increase came with hotel, motels, and resorts from 203 to 212 nearly. And I think this is in pretty much agreement, at least directionally, with what you're getting from STR. And that always gives us some comfort, and we hope it gives them some comfort. So, I'm not sure that's the case. Again, we see this drop in condo and vacation homes, and a little bit more of a drop in RV park and campground for average daily rate. RevPAR trends, 7.1% over this period. And then again, hotel, motels, and resorts covered most of that percentage increase. That is 10.2% over the period, which is above the overall average. Got a big bump between 17 and 18. And then again, what pulled that down over the same period of time really was condo vacation homes and also a little bit RV parks and campgrounds. So the big infrastructure business seems to be really pulling things in the direction that you want to see them pulled. Visitor satisfaction, we're fabulous to see this, from 94% up to 96% in 2018. Those little parentheses mean that this is actually statistically significant information. That is, if we did this study 100 times, we would get this result 95 times. And so that's a real increase in visitor satisfaction. Quality of accommodations, it's a bit of a head scratcher. It's also statistically significant that it dropped a little bit from 94 to 91 I'm not sure I'd worry about that. Could be, I don't know what it could be. Likelihood to recommend or return to Lee County. Likelihood to recommend is hanging right in there at 92, 91% for 2017 and then 2018. And then again, likelihood to return to Lee County, because we want those return visitors, repeat visitors. It's actually up for 2018, 94% over 93. And again, that's statistically significant. So the bottom line is the people who have been here in the winter season are very satisfied, and they're going to come back. Outlook for the second quarter of 2018. This was thrilling for us. Back in those polar vortex years up in the northern part of the country, in the Midwest and the Northeast, when everybody finally just threw the towel in and said, heck, I'm going to Lee County. Basically, when we talked to people after the end of the winter season, the optimism was unbridled. Well, then we had a couple soft winters further up north, and then we had some things happening in the sort of geopolitical sphere, and I think the combination of soft winters and uncertainty in the world kind of led that optimism to abate just a little bit in 16 and 17, and it's really nice to see it bounce back in 2018. The good Lord gave us a crummy winter up north in 2017, which maybe encouraged more people to take a vacation, and we're now all getting used to the new normal in the geopolitical scene, whatever that may be, and so it's nice to see lodging managers' optimism starting to bounce back to levels that we were at back in 14 and 15. And that's our report from the north. Are there any questions, or do you want to add anything, Tam?
Any questions? Any comments about the report?
Where do you attribute that drop in the condos from?
I think it is primarily really a sampling thing, having to do with the fact that in doing the lodging update, where we went back and we went through all the properties in Lee County, and we added properties, we deleted properties. The very process of doing that creates a situation in which we get higher response rates, and I think we got a lot more response in that particular category. So I think that we were getting a lot more realistic response, which is slightly lower occupancy than we would have imputed with our economic model had we not actually talked to people. And so I think it's actually the fact that we were talking to those people and getting them to answer our questions rather than having to impute data for essentially missing answers. It'll be interesting when we do it again to see how it holds.
And just to add a little bit to that, I think the condo category, the number of available units, that is the greatest challenge for us. Hotels are easy. You have a business license, you know you got a hotel and it's 100 rooms or 127 rooms. But you got this condo complex, and this month it might have 3 units that are vacation rentals, and another month it might have 30 units that are vacation rentals. I think it's a challenge for the research company to really, I feel like there's the most variability possibility in those numbers because the number of available units fluctuates significantly. Who's in this month or this quarter versus out another quarter is very variable, much more so than even the RV parks or the hotels.
One other question was, did you have any data or thing about people who might have been displaced from the hurricane in other areas that decided to come here? Did you do any of that, or was that why did they come here? In other words, they may have been going to the Dominican Republic or someplace, but because of the hurricane damage, they ended up coming here. Did you have any of that?
We did not alter the questionnaire in that way to attempt to examine that issue.
We did not. It's a good question.
We picked up, I know from my own interviewing of my guests from time to time, we picked up quite a few people that, especially in January and February, who were displaced and had no place else to go.
Well, we were talking about the number. 87% occupancy. For a whole quarter to run 87. You guys are hoteliers. You know better than I do. That's like 100%. That's about as well as you can do, right?
We got those answers. Nicole and I kept talking about the fact that we better do it again, and we better do it again, and we better do it again, because you can't really run that that high for very long.
And, it's like when we talk about unemployment, 3.5% unemployment's full employment. It's the same kind of thing. High 80s in occupancy is the same as full occupancy.
I just had a comment.
Holly?
In regards to your saying quality of accommodations, that you really weren't quite sure what that meant. I think from experience, I can say that in this area, a lot of the properties might be a little bit more dated. And the people that are coming in and the millennials are having a much higher demand of expectations of where they're staying and how that property looks. And I know we at the municipality of Sanibel, we're really working hard to make sure that we're bringing those properties up to that type of standard, because the standard's going higher and higher and higher, and you have a lot of older properties all over Southwest Florida that cater to the beach cruiser.
Right. I would agree with that, and the fact that the ADR went up, I think we're outpacing. ADR is growing, but some of the hotels are not meeting that expectations, and that's what, if we're going to continue to see that ADR grow, the hotels are going to need to continue to.
I've been beating that drum for 8 years. Continue to upgrade your properties. And I know, when you see something happen like what Chris Davidson did at Island Inn, and, some of the other things, some of the properties, Bill, when you guys, do your renovations, I mean, all the hoteliers, it makes an inordinate difference. And I know it's always hard to step back, yes, we're profitable, but there's missed opportunity. And I think that that's a hard conversation to have around those board tables, but one that, I know is very important to our longevity as a tourism destination. We have to upgrade, we have to keep up with the kind of product and quality that you see in other destinations similar to ours. It's critical.
It's the classic sort of macroeconomics versus business, situation. And the fact that the market on a macro level is basically the demand is going to pull the ADR for a long period of time. But eventually, individual business decisions kind of have to push to keep up with it. And I think that's exactly. I always hate reporting anything negative, and I appreciate it when someone understands.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Well, thank you. Great job.
Thank you very much.
My report is done, sir.
Thank you. And item 9. For today, so the council information. I want to start real quick. I just want to give you an update. Myself and Pamela this weekend had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., and we got to speak in front of the Congressional Senate group with their staff on Monday morning to speak in favor of NOAA continuing to get funding for monitoring of red tide and any type of algae growth. In their perspective, it was a global approach. We were speaking on behalf of Southwest Florida and Florida, and because we make sure that we need to continue monitoring the red tides as it comes forward, if it does come to our coastline. So continue that. I also brought up, of course, the Lake O discharges. That was a conversation, of course. And then the next day, I was able to stay and meet with congressional members the next day and continue our efforts here. I'm confident with Congressman Rooney's efforts with our funding. He's bringing a lot of funding to the table for us and getting a lot of funding. And as when I talked about the members of the House, it's interesting here they have some issues in Michigan and other parts of the country. So when you're talking to these congressmen in other parts of the country, you're like, well, Lake Erie, it's green. We can't drink the water out of Lake Erie, and we got $3 million, and you guys got $100 million for SERP. So it's a competition, and that's why we got to stay focused. And luckily with Mayor Wayne from Sanibel and the city of Sanibel and other leaders in the community, we can continue our efforts here to be vocal. We're stronger members, and that's something I've passed on to Mayor Wayne, so we need to work together to make sure we keep continuous funding. Congressman Rooney is pretty adamant, confident we're going to have all the funding through appropriations for the construction of the dike by 2021. That's still 4 years out, So it's obviously the rain started early this year, and hopefully the people in the islands will not see this all year, but we don't control Mother Nature. So what we can do is make sure we can try to get funding here needed in the future for these projects. And something I was just echoing when I was up there was just not just funding for our current projects here, C-43 and the restoration, Everglades restoration in the dike, but also other sources of storage of water north of the Kissimmee, north of the lake, so that water is captured before it gets to Lake Okeechobee. We shouldn't get 2 inches of rain and get a foot of water in the lake, and that's what's happening. You get 2 inches of rain within 100 miles of the lake, either north or east of it and west of it, and then the lake goes up a foot. And then they have to release the water. They have no choice. Our Army Corps of Engineers has no choice. But at the end of the day, we're getting all the stormwater for the state of Florida, basically, south of Orlando. And so we got to stay adamant and stay very involved and vocal on a positive manner. That's why my way I'm doing things is working with the delegation to try to make sure we continue to get funding here. So thank you to the city of Sanibel, your council, and your mayor for helping in that. But initially, when this was first scheduled a few weeks ago, Tamara was invited was because of funding for the monitors for red tide. And that's very important that we know when there is red tide coming from the north. It's like, I think it's off the coast of Pinellas County and Sarasota County as we speak. You as hotelers and you as involved in the community, you know that the red tide is coming. So you can tell, at least you tell your visitors, we may be suffering some red tide tomorrow, the next day, or the next week, if you have breathing problems or anything like that. So it's nice that we can at least be able to tell people ahead of time. Something we can't control is Mother Nature. It's not from the freshwater discharges, but obviously the discharges would help does not help with the color of the water, but because they can't see the red tide, they can smell it, they can't see it. So the color of the water they do see. So we're going to continue to work together on that. And another topic I've been talking with the mayor is about more monitors upstream in the river, more in Hendry County. The funding cannot be provided through statutory because of TDC, but we're looking maybe in the future, working with the Natural Resources Department to get those monitors upstream. There's a lot of freshwater intrusion coming on, and Sam was noticing. We're trying to figure out where the water is coming from. So I know our staff is going to be committed. I've already got the Glenn's involved, and I know Mayor Williams involved with it. He's already sent a letter to where we get the funding to provide the funding for those 3 extra monitors. We're already providing 3 on next Tuesday's board meeting, but we'll require another 3 monitors more upstream, I guess east up the river, to see where the water is coming from. So,
if I could talk to that
yeah, go ahead,
a little bit. And
Councilwoman.
I've asked the city manager, we did bring a couple of handouts. As we all know, we're being hammered right now. And with those monitors, for those of you that may or may not, I'm learning a lot about it. The releases that are coming are not just directly from Lake Okeechobee for us. We're being measured. We're getting half of our water that's being distributed from the lake. The other half is from a watershed that we don't know where this is coming. So east to St. Lucie, they're measured at one level. We are measured at another level. Then half of additional water is coming down through a watershed. So these monitors that we're looking to try to get funded in however way we can. The city of Sanibel has been working hard to try to find funding areas, working with Cecil and talking to the city attorneys county attorneys, to see where we might be able to come together, because this is certainly a community, state, local issue that we've got to deal with. One of my questions regarding the funding is, I know with TDC funding, it's the discipline is what we know we can fund. But my question will always be, what about the things we don't know in the pipeline? We don't know about these water releases. And I can tell you as a hotelier, I'm watching the way it's coming on social media, which is what city managers handing out. This is all over. This is national. This is probably international of what's happening. And when we're looking at building additional fields, when we're looking at filling these trams on Fort Myers Beach, they're coming to our beaches. And when I looked at the first slide of the budget request, it's a gorgeous blue water. When you look out right now, it's not. It's brown. So we've really got to work together to try to figure out how we can fund it. And I look forward to working with the county commission. The city looks forward to working with every other municipality. Kevin, our mayor, has been working with all of the mayors to try. They're all supporting our call to action, which we have emailed out. If anybody has not received a call to action, the city of Sanibel has put together a call to action that you can get in touch with all of the federal agencies that we really need to work with to let them know we can't survive this way. We're talking about building new hotel rooms. If our water isn't clear, we're not going to be filling those beds. We can talk about January through March, but we also have to think about March to December on how we can make sure. And you know, at this time of year, when they're out there in the brown water, that's what they see. So I really appreciate the opportunity to work and see if there's any other funding opportunities, either within the TDC or outside of the TDC, because sometimes we can look at something a little bit different way and know this is a tourist issue as well. This is a beds issue. And maybe we can find an opportunity in legislation, because that's a document that's always living and breathing, to be able to make some legislative changes that might help do what we need to get done and show the rest of the state that this county, and we're on board, and we're all teams. Every municipality has to work together to make sure that we get this done. So I thank you very much for everything the county is doing. We look forward to working really closely with you, as all of the other municipalities do. So
one of the things I did in D.C. when I was at the podium was to try to get the emotional point of it. I actually read, I think, 4 different comments from visitors that visited here this past year, or in the past, and their comments, how they came here with their children, they came to walk on the beach. The children couldn't walk on the beach because they have asthma, because of the red tide. So I read some 3 or 4 emotional pleas from people saying, and some basic end of it saying, I will not be back. Trying to get that point across to the delegation that, you know, this is important to us. And not only that, and I said, for the tourism, but it's also our backyard. We're here 365 days a year. A lot of people live on this water and these water bodies, and this is their backyard. And it's really important that we obviously do whatever we can in our efforts to stop it.
And we have to think about, you know, when people come down to visit, what's the next step? They come down to visit for a week, then they come down to stay for a month. And the next thing, they're buying a place down here. They're on our tax rolls. Right. So that's a huge consideration. And the mayor and I are actually traveling to Washington next month to pick up on the Everglades restoration. He's on a task force up there, and we'll be trying to hit the pavement and set up appointments to just keep working it. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecil. That's wonderful you went.
Thank you.
Pam, that was great.
Yeah.
It means a lot to all of
Couldn't do
you.
without her.
It means a lot to all of us.
It means a lot to have a commissioner that wants to be there doing that too. I mean, you could tell from the people in the room, they were really happy to see him there. You know, to have someone of his caliber to be there to speak those exactly.
It wasn't like I work here. It was
He always works hard. I don't mean it that way. It was good.
We have several, if anybody would like a copy of this or some of the social media impacts that we've seen, as you all have seen, we've got many copies. The city manager will have the packet.
Thank you.
Well, you know, social media is great, and the media is great to get our message out for tourism, but it's also can be very negative too. So,
this is what,
yeah, so it doesn't help us. But let's go around the table. Tony, do you have anything for council items? Do you have anything for the council items?
No.
Everything good on Captiva? Great, thank you. Bill?
Oh, good, thank you.
All right, Councilwoman, anything else?
Renee, a few short months, but it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Colleen?
We're going to miss you.
Yeah, I think we're all going to miss him.
Absolutely.
Ben, do you have anything for the county manager's office?
Good today. Thank you for all of the recommendations you made today.
Thank you. Ben?
Just have, you have your notes in front of you. It's short this time. Renee, I can't tell you how much we're all going to miss you. I don't want to go on because I think we'll all be.
Chairman, any last words?
All right, last words, all right. Well, let's see. First of all, thank you for those film clips I saw when I came in this morning. Those were interesting. Brought back some nice memories seeing Roxy and Jay Halco and all those. You know. But John Albion appointed me to the TDC in the year 2000. And we remember the year 2000. Y2K, when all the computers were supposed to go backwards. And that was the year that an ex-KGB agent got appointed president of Russia. And they also had mad cow disease. I mean, everything happened.
Oh, yeah, mad cow disease, yeah.
But closer to home, Elaine McLaughlin was the executive director of the TDC, and Walter Kalages, some of you used to remember him, he was our research coordinator. That was kind of interesting. And we had a 3% bed tax, and our total bed tax collections for the year amounted to about 9.9 million, and now they're at $40 million. So there's a big difference over those 18 years. But there are two reasons really why I'm stepping down. One, I mean, my term is up. My 4-year term is up, and I just turned 80 in April, so let's make room for somebody with some younger blood and fresh ideas. But the other reason is in 2015, the West Wind Inn and Rochester Resorts, we merged. So now we have 2 members on the TDC, 2 voting members from the same property. Now, we both, of course, keep the county-wide option open in our mind instead of being, parochial, but it just looks bad. So that's another reason I thought I'd just step down. But I've had a great time. I've enjoyed working with this council. I've enjoyed working with all the pros in the VCB. And you'll still see me. I just won't be sitting at the table. But thank you for everything.
Well, thank you for your service. Well, on that note, Tamara has a special gift she'd like to present to you.
So, you get a plaque, Renee. I know that, I'm guessing in your former career you got a lot of plaques, but we are so appreciative of you. So I'll read it over here by the mic. Presented to Renee Afforda in appreciation and recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Lee County tourism industry, 2000 through 2018. You will truly be missed.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm supposed to turn it this way. All right. Thank you so much.
And there will be cake in the room next door. We call it the green room, the next meeting room down for Renee, because we're going to have the events folks in here. And then we need to get everybody out as quickly as possible so that we can do that. But we didn't finish going around the room.
Councilman Curriosha?
I have no report.
You good?
All the time, didn't I?
Pam, say the best way.
One quick thing, like Renee, the Shell Factory is 80 years old this year. We're celebrating 8 decades in Lee County, so we're very excited about that. And we're tying into the National Seashell Movement by having a National Seashell Day of our own on the 24th with carnival games and quarter admission to the nature park and just old-fashioned 80 years ago pricing. So come and see us after you make your beautiful shell. So that's all I have, really. Thank you. I can keep talking.
We got this.
Thank you.
Left out Jeff
Well, thank you, Pam. Any other comments or anything before we adjourn?
Did we leave out Jeff Milkey, or was he going to do anything?
We pulled that off the agenda. He's not giving that forward. Yes. So item number 9. So if there's no other business, we'll be adjourned. We'll see you July 12th.
All right. So we stay here?
I'm sorry to